It was inevitable, but it was just a matter of time of who did it. And Ford was the person who has officially filed a patent for one of the worst ideas I've ever seen to put in the car, and it's advertisements. While you're driving, on your car's screen, using information like your private discussions you have with other people in the vehicle to tailor those ads to you. I wish I could make this up. So cars already collect a ton of data, and this documentation already kind of covers that. So the destination prediction, that will include a destination like where you're going. Route prediction can be used to indicate a type of route like inner streets, freeways, and so forth. And under speed prediction for high and low speeds, that will change whether or not you might interact with your screen to, quote here, view advertisements. And then from there, there's essentially how you use the car. And then the new bit of this is assessing a level of passenger and driver interaction, like acoustic information. And no, not you and your friend playing guitar while you're driving. It's your discussions. The document only gets more and more direct as you get into it. So some of the tech that they want to implement is determining user preferences for advertisements from any one or more of audio signals within the vehicle and or historical user data. So not just the conversations you're having in real time, but also historically. I think it's worth mentioning that nowhere in this document do they actually cover a use case or a use for this technology that's even claimed to be for the benefit of the user. But as we've seen historically, when they implement technologies like this, people would rightfully get pissed if it was solely for the purpose of serving them ads. So it's normally spun as a, oh, we have this new feature that also implements these ads that we are very excited to share with you. But no, the systems and methods disclosed provide maximized or optimized opportunities for ads-based monetization. And they acknowledge people don't want this because they hope these ads are good and personalized enough that it may provide an incentive to reduce a user's natural inclination to want minimal to no advertisements. Let me rephrase what they're saying. They're saying we can't bug people too much or they'll be upset. So let's just make enough money and maximize profits just enough where people aren't on the streets protesting our vehicles. Now, nowhere in any of this, nowhere do they talk about protecting this data or users' privacy or user security or really not much about safety either. Let's start with the basic stat that I pulled up here. Over 3,000 people were killed in 2019 and over 400,000 people were injured due to distracted driving. So I want to start with the number one issue here, which is driving safety should be one of the utmost highest priorities for a massive vehicle that can kill anything it hits. Meanwhile, the whole purpose of advertisements is to steal your attention. So if you're driving, instead of looking in front of you, I don't know why I have to explain this, you're going to be looking at an advertisement. Is probably what Ford wants. This patent wants to display ads on your car's main display while you're driving. I don't even know how this can be legal, and even they acknowledge this, because you might be wondering, do they at least acknowledge safety? They do. These technologies should be implemented in situations where such implementation can be done in a safe and reasonable manner. For example, if it is deemed undesirable or not allowed per local jurisdictional rules and or regulations, the in-vehicle advertisement systems and methods disclosed should be disabled in the vehicle, manually or automatically. So they'll say if legally they can't do this, they won't do this. Obviously for legal sake. I'm sure if there were no laws around this, they probably wouldn't even have to include that. Also, this is their safety mechanism for this, just so you know. A driver should not be looking at visual advertisements while the vehicle is moving. Okay, thank you. The only problem is every new car nowadays bakes all the functionality into these main screens, including many Ford vehicles. In order to adjust basic things in your vehicle, you have to look at the screen. So you can't ask drivers to look at the main screen to perform vital functions to their vehicle and also turn around and say, well, they shouldn't look at the ads that we're going to put on the same screen. Now, assuming you're able to survive one of these cars and they don't crush you to death because people are distracted by an advertisement, let's talk about concerns for the living, which include privacy concerns for people behind the wheel. Ford does not have a good history with this, but obviously every discussion you have with yourself, let's be real in the car, people you know, friends, family, and anyone else being analyzed, collected, and possibly shared with third parties. Again, Ford has a history of actually sharing data with third parties, and their privacy policy doesn't prohibit them from doing this kind of stuff. Has obviously massive privacy implications that people should really be taking seriously. This is also combined with data they probably already collect, which includes location data, where you go, where you live, how you use your car, and whatnot. And again, they want to share this data with insurers. Now, I know our audience is very privacy focused, but if you're somebody listening and you go, man, I don't really care about privacy, they can collect whatever they want about me, I'd still challenge you and say collecting data still means they have to secure the data. So even if you don't care about privacy implications, it's worth mentioning that in 2023, researchers found security vulnerabilities that allowed hackers to access Ford's users' personal information. In 2021, there was a bug that allowed people to access sensitive customer databases, employee records, and more. Also in 2021, there was a class action lawsuit filed against Ford for pretty much collecting SMS messages and submitting it to private companies. This was all done without user disclosure or without user knowledge. And of course, in 2020, there was a watchdog that talked about the security vulnerabilities in these vehicles and how that can also possibly kill people. And of course, I'm always going to come back to, do we own anything anymore? Or does everything have to be a subscription or something with ads? I mean, especially something that costs tens of thousands of dollars, you would expect it to just be good or at least decent and not try to continue to make a ton of money off of you going forward. This reminds me a lot of Vizio, which makes 2 times more money selling ads and data than it does on the TVs themselves. Their entire business model now is migrating to selling you crap and also selling you ads down the road. I almost understand people being okay not owning things like movies, TV shows, media, and whatnot anymore. I don't get it, but let's say this is true. What I don't understand is anyone being okay with not owning a car, which is the whole selling point of a car is this is something you own and you get to use it how you want to and take it where you want to and repair it how you want to, and not just have nonsense on the vehicle that's designed to sell you ads and make money for the company. It's just, there's no benefit to the end user. Now, some of you might be saying, Henry, this is just a patent. And yes, I know it's just a patent. It's not something that they've officially started rolling out. Technology hasn't even been developed yet. But I want to mention that this technology, a lot of it already exists in the cars. And in fact, they specifically say this is a software-only switch in the patent. They don't need to roll out any new hardware to do this. There's already mics in the vehicle. They already have the screens. They already have all the ability to collect this data. And you can actually see the privacy implications of Ford vehicles already, and it's already not good. They just want to use the data for more things that are even more privacy invasive. And this is also a pattern. A Ford patent filed in July proposed tech that would enable vehicles to monitor the speed of nearby cars, photograph them, and send the information to police. The idea sparked a backlash from privacy advocates, and it's still pending review for the patent. And Ford also quietly walked away from another controversial patent from last October for its plans that it would commandeer vehicles whose owners were late to pay and allow them to repossess themselves. So you just don't own your car anymore? So this is a direction that Ford wants to go. But this is where it gets worse. It's every auto manufacturer as well. So yes, we're picking on Ford in this video, and they have a pretty solid public track record of doing this kind of stuff, but so is every other car manufacturer. In fact, this website, which is one of my favorite websites, it's called Privacy Not Included, and it's by Mozilla, and they pretty much review tons of different things, like dating apps. You can view the privacy implications of different dating apps out there, if the site ever loads. There it goes. And it'll tell you what's wrong with it. If something's creepy, why it's creepy, what it collects. And they actually said that cars are the worst product category they've ever reviewed for privacy. And if you look at the chart, you will see there is not a single car manufacturer that you can successfully rely on to avoid collecting your personal data. Before I talk about what we should do to help prevent this from becoming a worse problem, I want to give a little bit of just personal takes here, which is the car industry, I feel like, was super late to tech in general. Lots of tech has already been integrated in lots of other areas and the things that we buy in our lives. And cars, yeah, they implemented things like GPS and maps, but mostly everything was offline. Within the last 10 years or so, car manufacturers have gone, wait, we can do a lot of this on our ends. We can make things cheaper. We can make things more privacy invasive. We can collect more data, and we can integrate this into our vehicles. But this is somewhat recent when it comes to the tech world. And I think people really don't see or respect just how new car tech overall kind of is relative to other things. Where I'm going with this is cars are currently kind of the Wild West. The car industry is just baking whatever the hell they want into their cars. They don't care what the legal repercussions are because there haven't really been many cases or situations where they've been held accountable. In fact, earlier, one of the class action lawsuits, let me pull it up here. This class action lawsuit was actually not respected. They found that Ford didn't do anything wrong by illegally taking people's SMS messages and sharing it with private companies. Essentially, they said that Ford is allowed to do this, and I don't think they would have actually ruled in that kind of way if it wasn't a car manufacturer. So, still a Wild West. Car companies are taking advantage of it. They're implementing everything they can into their cars because there's no reason they shouldn't. And if we go back to other situations, this is kind of like what social media used to be. Social media back in the day pretty much was roll whatever you can, do whatever you can to maximize profits, do whatever. And again, this is still very much a thing. But now companies are being fined left and right. The EU is trying to hold companies accountable, and there are fantastic alternatives that exist to mainstream media platforms like Facebook, some of which, like Mastodon, are a lot more privacy focused and allow people to host their own data. We don't really have anything like that for cars yet. We also look at messengers. Messengers used to all have no end-to-end encryption, and they used to collect all users' data and just store it indefinitely. And now we have end-to-end encrypted messengers, many of which, like Signal, go further and actually respect your metadata, and some will even route through things like Tor, and they're open source, and they allow you to host your own nodes and all this crazy stuff. So there's a lot you can do with messengers. Same with browsers. Browsers didn't used to have any privacy functionality, and now many browsers do implement some basics. So I'm optimistic. I think that we're just currently in this wild west of car privacy right now, but I like to think that in the long run, not only will cars have to get their act together because of regulation, but ideally it will become a selling point for people who are sick of this nonsense and want a car that they can trust. And I think that the car company that can capitalize on trust and capitalize on being able to implement safe technologies in their vehicles that respect their users will win at the end of the day. So what can consumers like myself and you people listening do? First, vote for politicians that actually take this stuff seriously. There are some politicians out there speaking publicly about this kind of stuff, or just privacy in general. Vote for privacy regulation that can be used to help hold these companies accountable. At the time of making this, Ford doesn't really offer any deletion options for users' data, with the exception of in California, which has a right to delete law within California. So we need this kind of regulation to hold these companies accountable. You can also vote with your wallet. You can pick perhaps a car that allows you to opt out, or you can pick a car that is less privacy invasive, or you can buy a used car that kind of avoids this issue, at least temporarily, but it's not a long-term solution. If you want a little bit more insight, there's a site here called Privacy for Cars that allows you to put in a VIN, and it tells you the exact data that can be collected by the vehicle. So when you're looking and shopping for a car, when you eventually get the VIN before you buy it so you can check things like Carfax, maybe do a Privacy for Cars check as part of that, and vote with your wallet and only buy a car that might have slightly better practices. From there, you can use your voice. Let these companies know that this is kind of crazy. You know, if you test drive a car, ask questions. It's not weird or crazy to be like, hey, I've heard that some cars collect internal data about my conversations. Does your vehicle do that? And if it does do that, then express concern, maybe even choose a different car and let them know that's why you're not picking the car. Use your voice. Tell companies what you like and don't like. They actually sometimes listen if enough people make a mess of it. And of course, spread the word and educate people. Most people, when they're buying a new car, don't think about the amount of data that these cars are collecting that are not only privacy invasive, but insecure. And I think if most people learned about the kind of data they collected and who they shared the data with, they wouldn't be as comfortable with it. So make sure to educate people around you, share this video. Those are wonderful starts to making a difference around you. I want to thank our gold sponsor, NoteSnook. They do a lot to help keep us growing and keep our content super awesome and free and available to all of you. I want to also thank our patrons who do the same thing. They allow us to compartmentalize where we make money from, and we couldn't make independent content like this if it wasn't for our patrons. So if you want to give back to what we do, join us on patreon.com/Techlore. We have many benefits there as well, like a private signal group where you can chat with me and other people in the community. And we have other ways to give back, like via Monero, LibraPay, PayPal, Ko-fi, etc. The list goes on. I also want to point you to a video that we put out recently that talks about just our lack of ownership in anything we do. If you like this video and the concepts resonate with you, check out how a lot of these things that car companies are doing exist in other areas of your life right here. I'll see you in that video, and I'll see you next time on Techlore.